What's going on, everybody? After the patch has gone live, there's a little bit of changes to this tier list. I honestly wasn't expecting to make any changes to my previous tier list because I thought it was really good. But with the new gameplay changes and especially how Boom Boom works, there's a lot of characters that got knocked down a peg. Mario is going to go into A tier simply because far shots are not nearly as effective as they used to be. In fact, they're about 30% less effective than they were before the patch. So this means that having a dedicated striker whose only job is to rip far shots from the midfield when they're open is not as strong. So you can totally get by with a team without either of these characters. I will say having them is still pretty good. You can use them on your team and you can still get 40% of your shots or so from the midfield. So they're still very good characters and they can run basically on any team, but they're just not S tier. Next, we'll talk about the boy Luigi, who unfortunately, because of the new mechanics in the patch, is knocked down into the B tier. This is completely because of how they changed Boom Boom. Technique just does not get the job done anymore, and he has 17 technique and almost no shooting. Any build you make of him is going to just have so many stats that are wasted because he can't score from the places he used to be able to. For all the Luigi fans, I do have to make a reminder, B tier does not mean they're a trash character. You can make any character viable in this game. It is very balanced. It's just, can you fit Luigi onto a team that another character isn't going to do better? And at this point, I don't think it's possible because he just has so much technique. Now, in probably my most uncontroversial pick, Bowser is going to move up from the A tier into the S tier. And Bowser, in my opinion, is the only S tier character. Bowser just has an insane tackle. It goes far, it has a wide hitbox, he hits anything, and he also has the ability to block passes and shots because his hitbox is so big. Other than DK, there's no other character that has a hitbox that is this large. So running a Speed Bowser as a captain puts so much pressure on your opponent even after you score because you can lock off so many parts of the map just based on your large hitbox. On top of that, the Knight Armor also gave Bowser a huge boost because now instead of only lifting his strength, he can lift both his strength and his shooting and his speed at the same time. Bowser is now the character I look out for. If you are not running a Bowser, I think you are at a severe disadvantage against somebody who is. Let's move on to Peach, who is still comfortably in the A tier. Although Peach did get nerfed by the technique thing, I don't think that her Speedy technique build was her best, and I think most people should be running her with just a lot of speed and a lot of passing as a more support character. Being one of the only characters that can even reach 25 speed is already enough to put Peach in the A tier, and I don't think she's ever going to move down to B tier because any character that can get to 25 speed is going to be excellent. Getting into Rosalina, she of course suffers the same fate as Mario as I mentioned earlier. Long range shots are just nerfed now, so it's much more effective to score from up close, and that means that pretty much any character can do that. You don't need a Rosalina on the team, even though having these two characters is still very good. Next, let's talk about the lad, Toad. Toad is also comfortably in A tier for the same reason as Peach. Any character that is speedy enough to be able to max out speed and be a relevant character is going to fit himself into A tier quite nicely. The one bad thing about Toad is that he suffers a little bit on defense because it's very hard to tackle the important targets. He doesn't have a lot of strength to do that, but fortunately, he does have a smaller hitbox, so he's able to sneak past the defense, and he has very high passing to be able to set up those cross passes, and of course, the speed is just enough to zip around the field anywhere he wants. Surprisingly, I think this patch, Yoshi gets a little bit of a buff because shooting is a little bit more important than technique now. So honestly, Yoshi has a really solid spread. You can put a couple points into speed and then put the rest into shooting. And then Yoshi is pretty much going to be on par with Mario or Rosalina. Maybe not from as far out, but definitely from up close. And it's very nice to also have passing along with the ride. Donkey Kong is always so hard to rank. I don't know what to do with this character, honestly. I would love to put him in the A tier because I now value passing quite a bit, but his slow speed just doesn't get him there. And if you put too much investment in speed, you're going to be either too weak or you're going to have to take those points out of passing, in which case you might as well just use Toad. The one benefit of DK is that he does have a pretty large hitbox similar to Bowser, so he's pretty good on defense. But other than that, his stats just don't get him to where he needs to go. So I'm going to put him in B tier, but giving him the benefit of the doubt, he could be an A tier character with the right team. Oh, all right, Wario. Listen, this is going to be a controversial pick, but this patch did wonders for Wario. I'm going to put him in the A tier, and here's why. First of all, the obvious out of the way, he has access to Knight Armor now, which is going to give him boosts to strength and shooting and whatever other stats at the same time, which is exactly what Wario needed. I've always thought that Wario's best build was one where he made maximum strength, because it's very easy for him to walk up to the crease when your opponent is running very weak, fast characters. And now that he has super high shooting, he can even walk up and score more effectively. I have not tried this Wario build in a competitive match, but I have tried a similar Daisy build, and I think that this is a very nice anti-meta pick, because if your opponent is taking characters like Mario and Peach and Toad, you can run around with the Wario and no one can knock you over. And yes, Bowser could do this role as well, but he's already an S tier, so Wario's the next best pick. Waluigi is a no-brainer, still in the A tier, maybe even S tier. He's very, very good, especially because defense is well needed in this meta. You really just need someone who can run around the field and get in position and maybe give you a chance of stopping a cross pass, and Waluigi is that person to do it. Alright, now let's talk about the newcomers to the game, the DLC, Daisy, and Shy Guy. Starting with Shy Guy, I think he doesn't make the cut into A tier and is going to fall into B tier. A classic example of suffering from too much balance. I have two rules when it comes to making these tier lists. One, no character is bad because the game is balanced. That's why it's B tier and not F tier. And second, is there a character that can do the job better? And for Shy Guy, the answer is always yes. If you run a Speedy Shy Guy with passing, Toad can do that job better. If you run a defensive build that is Speedy with strength, Waluigi does that better. If you run a power forward with strength, speed, and shooting, Bowser does that better. If you run a maximum strength, Daisy and Wario do that better. Shy Guy just always falls short in comparison to those other characters. I will say that Shy Guy's base stats, if you're just running no gear, is pretty good. I like having a balanced character in that regard, but it's just when you're running a team-focused meta, Shy Guy is going to get outclassed pretty much every time. And finally, the girl Daisy does in fact make the cut into A tier. You may be wondering why Daisy's up here and Luigi isn't, and I will say if you're using Daisy as a shooter, then Daisy definitely goes down here because she's really bad. She's really, really bad. But if you use Daisy in a strength sense, that 2 strength that she gets over Luigi makes a huge difference. Being able to get to 23 strength means that only people who have 15 strength or higher can knock you over, so Daisy has the potential to punch her way through the defense, whereas Luigi doesn't really have that ability at all. And just like I talked about with Wario, I think that's a very nice anti-meta pick, being able to power through the defense and not get knocked over by the weaker Speedy characters like Toad and Yoshi and Peach. But if it makes you feel better, Daisy's the absolute lowest A tier, like the worst of the worst A tier, and it's not as big of a jump as you think. After a little bit of reorganization, this is what the final tier list looks like. Mario is going to top Rosalina. Mario is going to be a little bit better than Rosalina because of his higher speed, but they're both pretty much interchangeable at the best shooter line, and shooters are still good in this game. Then you have Waluigi, who is very good at knocking over people on defense. Then you got Peach and Toad, who can both be super speedy builds with good passing, which is the most efficient way of scoring now. Then you have Yoshi, who is just a good all-around shooter. He has very high shooting, and his high passing also makes him a good wing. Followed by the anti-meta picks, and I put them at the bottom of A tier because while they will win you games if you're against the right team, if you're against a team that has maybe a Bowser and a Waluigi, they're going to be pretty useless because the Bowser is going to take him out quite quickly. But if you're against the right team, Wario and Daisy are going to dominate. Then in the B tier, we have a Donkey Kong who is still in the uncertainty zone, but with high strength and high passing can definitely have potential on teams, and no other character can do it better than him. Then we have Shy Guy, who is unfortunately always outclassed. And unfortunately, Luigi is now the worst character in the game. Not only is he outclassed by Daisy, but he's also just way worse of a shooter than he was before. So he just doesn't cut it pretty much anywhere. If you want a passer, use Toad. If you want a shooter, use Mario. Luigi just not going to cut it. Anyway, that is my tier list. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you guys for watching and have a nice day.